Welcome to the Tech Founders Podcast, where we talk to founders to learn more about their experience, gain inspiration, and unearth practical advice on how to navigate the tech startup landscape. I'm your host, Marcus Pappin, and today I'm super excited to talk with Gorish Aggarwal, the CEO of Sybill. So Sybill empowers high-performing sales teams to type less and sell more by leveraging AI. They also just raised $11 million in Series A funding and have this hilarious rap video on their YouTube channel that announces the funding announcement, and it also goes into the before and after of a sales rep using Sybill. So I love that video and just how it started. I woke up with caffeine in my veins, another day of Zoom, bringing the page. I thought that was a super creative way to announce how you guys were doing, how much money you guys raised, and it made
Here's
me laugh a bunch of times.
a fun fact about that video. The music or the audio track of that video was actually
Yeah.
created by AI
No
and
way.
sung by AI. Yeah, it's not a human, it's an AI. So we have a friend who basically has built this model that can convert any lyrics into audio track.
Yeah.
So we asked him, hey, can you help us with this? And he's like, sure, I want to do this. And he basically created this entire audio track, which is
Yeah.
like AI generated, which is like rap, hip kind of track to go along with the video and the lyrics.
That's awesome. Did you guys have an iterative process to arrive at the final product, or did it just
Oh,
come out and
oh, it came out beautifully in one time.
beautiful?
Like we had the lyrics which we changed, but no editing. It
Yeah.
was an end-to-end model
I,
which we built out.
I thought it was very creative given this kind of industry. It's something that obviously sales is a lot more formal. It can be a lot more cut and dry. And then to see a rap video, when I clicked on the video, I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah,
That's
it was
awesome.
a good, fun thing for us as well.
Yeah. Well, Gorish, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. Let's get started with a bit about your background and the journey that led you to starting your AI startup.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, Marcus. It's really a pleasure to be here. My background is so I've been an AI ML researcher for about 8 years before I started Sybil. And then
Mhm.
the last 4 years, obviously, we have been using AI in all the various contexts it can be used.
Yeah.
Um, I used to work in the AI, in healthcare AI domain, actually, for one of the largest tech companies out there. Uh, then came to Stanford to pursue my grad studies again with the backdrop of AI. I wanted to do a lot of neural engineering and understanding human psychology using AI. Um, Started lecturing at Stanford with optimization theory I was teaching to grad students, and then COVID hit. And what ended
Mhm.
up happening was my in-person lectures, where I have a lecture hall, all shifted to an online lecture room. And I had like
Mhm.
40 students, and you can't even see faces on Zoom calls, right? If you have 40 students and you're sharing a screen.
Yeah.
So we started out 4 years ago, right after COVID, thinking, hey, maybe we can build an AI that could really read body language and facial expressions on Zoom calls of
Mhm.
the presenter of the audience and give that signal to the presenter to help them understand, hey, this is your audience is engaging with your content, they're understanding, they're not resonating. And then so that is how we got started. So our first idea was like kind of just building a mind reader for Zoom calls. And then
Mhm.
over time we iterated, where can we use that technology, who else has this problem, what else issues they are facing in the day to day. So we started building this AI assistant for sales, where the seller becomes the object and the AI helps them go through their day to day much more efficiently, uh, and just do all of the manual tasks for them. And they don't have
Mhm.
to care about anything other than the deal execution and the customer conversations directly.
Mhm. Awesome. So you started off as a lecturer, and I know you have a few co-founders. How were you
Mhm.
guys exactly? Well, how were you able to make that transition from trying to understand a lecturer into jumping
Mhm.
into sales? Because I know they're two different domains there.
Yeah, very, very different. We have not done B2B sales, or before 4 years, we did not have a background in B2B sales.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was, as we started building out that idea, and my co founders, Nishit, Shomarko, and Mehek, were always building with me.
Mhm.
So we were trying out a couple of ideas before. Uh, what we found was this whole mind reader for Zoom can actually be used most effectively for sales and helping sellers understand their buyers. So sellers wanted to get a sense of, hey, if I'm sharing pricing, who
Mhm.
folds their arm and sits like this versus who is like even more leaned in and nodding and smiling.
Yeah.
And that was our first foray into sales. Now, after spending a year or so with sales rep, we understood that this is a problem that they face, but there are way more critical unmet problems
No.
that these sellers are facing. And so some of those are like, how do they automate all the admin work around their day to day? And that takes up 60-70% of the time for a seller. So
Mhm.
imagine paying someone 200K, and for 60% of the time they're simply updating Salesforce notes or creating decks or creating emails, which can all be automated away. That's the promise we bring. So it's almost been a very iterative journey, so figuring out through uh, talking to buyers, talking to salespeople, understanding what are the key challenges they face, their managers, their subordinates, just learning about the industry and the market.
Mhm. And when you guys were going for that transition, I imagine you were talking constantly to many
Mhm.
salespeople
Yeah.
and working with them. How would you guys go out? Because a lot of problem that early founders have is they don't really know who they're trying to solve for. And they
Mhm.
also have problems kind of finding those people, and then having the confidence to go and talk to them. How were you guys
Yeah.
able to bridge that gap and really understand this niche, this niche industry or this
Yeah.
niche
We did
specifically?
over 400 interviews in the first year of our existence.
Oh, wow.
400 interviews with sales reps, sales VP of sales,
Yeah.
RevOps, sales managers. Like, it's a very broad industry. There are many personas that come as part of a GTM organization,
Yeah.
even product marketing managers. The So initially it was a key challenge, like how do we get out to these people? How do we figure out who these are? What do they want? I think the thing that worked very beautifully for us were LinkedIn outreach. So you used to send a connection request to these people and ask them for, hey, could you jump on a 30 minutes call for some feedback and advice? We are Stanford founders trying to build ABC. And
Yeah.
then once those people would jump on a call, they would get excited. We typically ask them for referrals to other people. So
Hmm.
it sort of helped us, like one person jumping on a call would get us 2 to 3 referrals sometimes, and that would help grow the number of people we could talk to very, very quickly. So this was like, these two were the primary sources where we would get LinkedIn to for the cold start problem, but then uh, get the people we are talking to refer other people in their network, and everyone knows at least a couple of salespeople that they can talk to us about, right?
Yeah.
And people are happy to help new founders trying to figure out things in their market. So it's like there's a give and take where, okay, we are building this product, and then once we release this, we'll share it with you. We'll share the insights we have received from them back.
I think you guys picked a very good industry because you're probably talking to the most social people there are out there.
Yeah,
With
that's
those, a lot of people. So that snowball effect can really pick up over time.
Yeah. And salespeople are so fun to sell into, right? Both built
Yeah.
for and sell into, because they're like, hey, I've done this hundreds of times, so I know what you're trying to do. So there's no um, trying to sneak your way in. There's like, the more direct you go, the better you are, because they know what you're doing.
They know they're playing the game as well.
Yeah.
So Sybill's a very technical product. I was going through the application and I was watching some of there was once you sign into the app, you guys have a demo video, and I
Hmm.
was going through that demo video, really understanding what was going on, and I found it really cool how you guys were analyzing the visual cues. So
Hmm.
if somebody's smiling, as you said, crossing their arms when they hear the price.
Hmm.
So I read somewhere that you guys develop your models in house. That's
Yep.
correct. So when you're
Yes.
going to talk to the salespeople and get information about your customers, I'm curious
Hmm.
to know how you guys were able to kind of bridge the gap between engineering and the feedback between that you were getting from talking to your customers or your potential customers there and how that looked.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the product on the back end is extremely complex. So
Yeah.
we build our own models almost entirely in house. We have built our own RAG engines. fine-tuned our LLM models, and then obviously our behavior AI models, which are the non-verbal cues, right?
Hmm.
One thing we do aim to do, despite having a very complex backend, is that the UI UX is really, really straightforward, because the person using that UI is extremely non-technical. Like, they
Yeah.
can get good UX, they can get good UI, but if you start getting into the nitty-gritties and start having them analyze a lot of things, then it becomes really hard for them to sort of relate and start adopting that product. So
Mhm.
it's both ends of the spectrum, where the back end is super complex, but the front end is extremely simple. And almost at this point, a majority of our sales come through self-service motion. So no one needs to really understand or spend a bunch of time trying to figure out that product. Because remember, salespeople already have too many things on their plate.
Yeah.
Uh, Now to your question on how do we bridge the gap between the customers and the technology front or the engineering team,
Hmm.
is, and it starts for us, it starts almost on day one. So every person who joins the Sybill team, whether it be a salesperson or it be an engineer or a machine learning engineer, front end or back end, has to understand what the customers is trying to solve for. So we
Hmm.
typically recommend a couple of sales books for them as recommended reading in the first week. So Qualified Sales Leader is a really good example. It
Okay.
takes a very story based approach to get someone involved and understand, here are the different segments in a GTM organization, and this is what each of their priorities and needs are.
Hmm.
So that helps them get and build an empathy for the customer. And then typically, because we are using Sybil internally, the engineering team will share snippets of the call internally with the rest of the team.
Mm.
So engineering team will be able to look at the snippets or the call recordings and get a sense of, hey, this is what is going on. Our engineers are also in many cases in direct contact with the customer. So either they are helping them become successful in one way or the other, or they are also on calls like feedback calls, customer research calls, where they would listen to the customer directly, instead of going through, you have the user research team, sometimes a product team, and then eventually filtered out requirements comes to the engineer.
Hmm.
We have been built in a way like where engineers can get or almost directly connected to the customers at all times.
I love that. I started my career at an agency where I was very customer facing. So I would do
Mhm.
demos, I would often handle a lot of the project management. And then I switched to an engineering role to where you had the salespeople and you had the marketing people who would talk to the customers. And I got
Hmm.
kind of put behind that, which was good for other reasons. But you kind of realize that there can be a disconnect because the engineers, and especially in a company that's highly technical, are living in this world that could be so far away from the end
Hmm.
users. I think it's great that you guys are making that connection there and
Yeah.
encouraging engineers to read those books and
Hmm.
to have that communication. Because at the end of the day, if they have to implement something and they can put their mind in the place of the end user, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Exactly.
So as you guys are obviously, it's a very technical company. It's an AI product. You're developing your models in house. How do you encourage the company itself to leverage AI in the engineers in their development or other parts of the company to utilize the tools out there to increase their own productivity?
Yeah. That's something which I really pride our team to be on.
Hmm.
So we have taken AI adoption internally, not in just in the product, but also in up leveling the team to
Hmm.
really the next level. Uh, we actively share tools and use new AI tools, like getting AI tool adopted and getting like our network, our sort of friends to tell us what tools they are using has been a big deal.
Hmm.
So we have found some tools to be really helpful. Like I, for example, use a lot of things, like, so I have Superhuman ongoing, I have Fixer ongoing, I have Whisper Flow ongoing to manage my Slack and my emails,
Hmm.
uh, and that helps me save. So I remember the time when we didn't have these tools, and I would always be running behind on my emails. And then now it's like I'm always up to date because there's so many emails and these tools can manage them.
Yeah.
My engineering team is using everything from Cursor to now O1 and Replit agents, and obviously GitHub Copilot to get engineering speed, we have actually been able to get our engineering velocity up by almost 300%. So we're features that would take us 3 weeks to ship are now getting shipped in less than a week. So we literally are, and in some cases we are conceiving a feature at 11 a.m. and by end of next day it's out with
Wow.
just 2 people's effort, which is like crazy. And customers are like, "Hey, I didn't hear this on the roadmap meeting
Yeah.
last week. What's happening?" And like that's the level of the speed of innovation and progress we're making on the AI front. We have had we have used AI even in marketing domains, like which is like SEO and content creation and sort of video repurposing and all of those. But those are more common use cases that you see. Uh, Sales is obviously we are trying to involve our product as much as possible to solve
Mhm.
those.
So I'm really curious to dive in. As an engineer myself, one of the constant problems I've faced working in teams is trying to measure our velocity and how we can
Mhm,
improve that. So you try things such as story points, tracking your time,
mhm.
etc. Could you dive into how you guys were able to see that your velocity increased by 300% and what metric or what you guys were looking at to gauge that?
Yeah, so it's typically the roadmap movement velocity. So
Okay,
we can look at if we created a roadmap in one quarter, if that roadmap fell short by certain percentage of projects, and
got
in the next quarter, how quickly we were able to complete that. So we don't do a lot of individual tracking like story points or line of codes or all of that.
it. Hmm.
Those are helpful probably in larger organization, but right now everyone has so much independence of sort of work, and they can take initiatives and they can decide in many cases their own projects
Hmm.
in some ways. So it's harder to track story points or codes of lines of code.
Yeah.
uh, we do it, hey, here is the product today, here is what we shipped over the last quarter, and this is the gap from what we shipped the quarter before. So that's how we look at speed of development or velocity.
Okay. So you guys are 4 years in now. You just had
Mhm.
a humongous funding round. Where do
Mhm.
you see yourself going forward? What's the next year, 2 years look like for you, and what are your goals in that time frame?
Yeah. So critically, the number one thing which we are measuring today and we are starting to focus on today is, hey, Sybill is being used by B2B sellers in over 500 companies. Can we measure and improve the revenue per rep that we have been able to drive
Hmm.
within these companies? So long term, our mission is we want to drive the revenue per rep up by 400% from where it is today. So if someone is able to sell $1 million worth of goods without Sybil, they should be able to get to $4 to $5 million worth of goods with Sybil. And by goods, I mean product or services.
Yeah.
So we want to actively measure that, and that's a tall order, but that's also something what we believe will help us become one of the most generational companies in the GTM tech space. So if you think about like a lot of tools, they're claiming 10, 20, 30%. The
Mhm.
leap of faith we are taking is we can actually get this in an order of magnitude higher. uh, and that's what we are aiming towards. So both first measuring that and seeing in the next 2 years can we get this number to double, and then uh, over time increasing that to 4 times of where it is.
And how did you guys arrive at that 4 times number? Was there,
Theoretic
yeah.
Yeah, there is a theoretical concept like revenue is a function of how many deals can you take in parallel, which is basically productivity.
Okay.
What is your win rate per deal, and then how quickly is the deal cycle? So all three combined gets us to a point where we can actually target, theoretically we can target 600%, and we are just giving away some to natural flow of things. And so we are saying, hey, with Sybil, we can actually get you up 400%. And that's what we are aiming for. Uh, I think everything in the company is geared towards, hey, can we get the sellers towards that point,
Mhm.
which involves automation of everything, their coaching and enablement. And with AI tools, I think this is becoming more and more of a reality than a
Yeah.
dream. Uh, it was before. And sales is also something which will not get automated, right? a lot of other domains, you cannot take the human out of the loop, because on the procurement side, there's a human. So on the
Mhm.
selling side, there has to be a human that the procurement person will trust to sell to them. So the best we can do is we can assist these sellers instead of automating them away. Uh, and that's where we come in.
I really like that because as somebody who works behind a computer and I talk to people on Zoom calls, it's great, but you see somebody in person and it's like a different sort of connection. And I
Yeah.
love how you guys are tying that in something as important as sales, where there's a whole lot going on in a call and
Mhm.
the communication that you want to be able to respond to. And you lose a bit of that, obviously, going virtual. So it's nice to
Mhm.
work that back in again. So you guys are 4 years into your journey. I'm sure you've learned a ton in this time. Is there any just overarching lessons that you've learned that you'd like to share that you think would be valuable for people who were in your position 2, 3, 4 years ago?
I think the biggest thing I've learned through this journey is that the team is the most critical part of building a company. For me, people were always important. Like, I love to work with smart, brilliant, talented folks. But over 4 years, that sort of phenomena has sort of been honed down stronger and stronger and stronger. Where, like, today, and I do see it for the foreseeable future, I tend to interview and meet regularly every single member of the team. And I
No.
think having the best people will really make a difference in how quickly we can build, or how quickly we can succeed or fail as a company.
Awesome. Well, Gorish, I feel like I could talk to you for hours more, but it's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you for so much for coming on the podcast. And I'm sure a lot of people will be taking a lot of knowledge that you said today and be able to implement that in their own businesses.
Thank you so much, Marcus. It was really a pleasure chatting with you.
What a great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation with Gorish, and it's always great to get a peek into the minds of people who are building great products. I hope you guys took away as much from that episode as I did. Make sure to check out Sybill at sybill.ai. And also, if you want to learn more about Gorish, you can find him on LinkedIn, which I will be including down below in the description. Thank you guys so much for listening and have a great day.